Hey everyone, I'm Jay.
And I'm Scott, and welcome to WytchWyse. So today we are going to be talking about witch blood and the devil's mark, or the witch's mark.
Yeah, so essentially like hereditary witches, what is the witch blood?
Right.
Pretty much.
So the first things first is, that's exactly where we'll start.
Mm-hmm.
What is witch blood? What is witch's mark, the devil's mark? As far as the devil's mark or the witch's mark, a lot of that can be traced back to the Malleus Maleficarum and other witch hunting texts from the early medieval period. But those, of course, were discussing very real physical marks on the body. Third nipples, extra digits.
Oh, that's what that actually is. Deformities.
Right.
Okay.
However, to witches today who believe in a witch's mark, it's believed to be an inward thing, a soul thing, something marking the soul.
Something that you kind of, almost like an extra sense that has been with you.
Right. I always kind of likened it to like, there's this really beautiful wood carving of a devil or a horned deity of sorts, stoking this large bonfire, and I always saw it as like for the witch's mark, those who are marked were like branded at birth, like when you were coming to your body, it was like, oh wait,
like you're pulling like newborn babies like out of a cauldron, and just
that.
I feel that.
Now,
it's actually really funny because it's funny you mentioned like deformities or things like that, because when I was born, I had red hair, like
which is
ginger,
one of them, yeah,
and my eyes were gray. And my mom's first words out of her mouth were, "Oh my God, I had the devil's baby." So, hi.
How cool would that if you kept that?
Sorry.
No, but yeah. So that would be the witch's mark from then and today. Now, as far as the witch blood is concerned, witch blood can be a couple of things. It could be the idea of heredity. It could be the idea of your family as a witch, blah blah blah. Which I want to duly noted, I am very skeptical of for reasons.
Yeah. Actually, before we get any further into that, I noticed that a lot of people that especially like writers and stuff, that claim that they are hereditary witches, a lot of them are like, "Oh, I'm from a line of gypsies," is usually the following phrase. What is our stance on the word gypsy?
It's racist.
Okay, so we're not okay with it.
No.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry. What's the alternative?
Romani.
Okay.
So it can be heredity through family,
mm-hmm.
blood family, if you buy that, and then there is the folklore of from all around the world, the idea that families have non-human lineage or non-human ancestry. So Nephilim from the first fall, the pre-fall of Lucifer from the Bible. So the Nephilim. Or Gorgon, which we know, Medusa, mythological figure with snakes. There's a Greek myths about people born half Gorgon, half human, who are magical. And then, of course, in Ireland to this day, many families, even if they don't believe it, you still kind of wear it like a badge, it seems, in Ireland. If your family has a personal history or folklore of not being fully human.
Or like of the Fae. It's funny, actually, I think I saw this one, like, it was like an Irish meme or something like that. And it was like the fairy rings of like the mushrooms.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, I don't believe in magic, but I won't go stand in that fairy ring though to test it.
Right, which is funny because
it just seems like a very Irish culture kind of thing.
Yeah. So, I was watching a documentary on the fairy faith of Ireland, and one of the PhDs, he was either history or whatever his degree was in. He was discussing this. Folklore may have been. He himself did not believe in such things. However, his granddaughter, who was young, most certainly did.
Mm.
And they told her about it. And he didn't try to sit there and tell her no. She was sitting on his lap and very proud of being, a descendant of fairies. And whether you believe in that is one thing or another. Now, here is where this concept gets a wee bit problematic for people, which I do want to be sensitive to. A lot of people feel the concept of the witch's mark or the witch's blood is so othering that it's basically ego stroking.
So saying
superiority.
that I'm a witch with the witch blood, but you're a witch without the witch blood.
Basically, for people, it would kind of be like, well, there's only witches with witch blood.
Kind of like purebloods, like in the Harry Potter.
Sort of, yeah.
Pure blood concept.
I would also say that witch blood can also it's funny. I look at personally. I think that's something I should do. Let me say this too. If you ask me, witch blood, devil's mark, witch's mark, etc., are all just a spiritual. They're all words for the same.
For the same thing. Yeah, I think what you're trying to put is your own position on what the witch blood is to you.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Right.
So witch blood, devil's mark, we share that same concept of it's that innate calling and affinity.
The drive
to the other.
Right. And as I am known for so far in this podcast, I always have a quote with things that I say. I like quoting people that I respect, people that I think are important or in some way inspirational to my craft. This is by the very well-known Sarah N. Lawless. Most people know her and her work. I love this quote. She actually just recently posted this, so I loved it.
Yeah.
How to become a witch in one easy step. Go actually practice some witchcraft. There is no witch blood, no witch race, no heredity, gene making you a shaman, sorcerer, a witch, etc. Anyone can practice magic if they actively seek it and do the work. No one is especially special. Magic is your birthright. As the human race, we are all connected, all magical. Now, I completely 100% agree with this. Now, you're kind of going to say, Scott, you're contradicting yourself. No, and here's why.
Right.
The witch's mark is not... It is not the person descended from fairies. You can have that, sure, if you believe that, and whatever, it's part of an ancient folkloric thing. Go for it. The witch's mark, the witch's blood, is the drive to do the work.
Right.
Everyone does have magic. I fully believe that magic is a human birthright. Full stop. It is the drive. I know... I've said this before. I think I said this in the last episode.
We always say you have to do the work. You have to put in the work.
Right, but not only that, I think I brought up my two friends who were both born on Halloween, both of whom have precognitive experiences. Neither one of them have any interest in sorcery.
Right.
None whatsoever, but by all folkloric standards would be the witchiest of the witches.
Yeah, exactly.
But born on Halloween. One was born... I think at 11:30, so almost at midnight on All Hallows Eve. And they have no interest in witchcraft whatsoever.
Right.
One is Catholic by default, and the other one is kind of Baptist Christian by default.
Right.
And they're not really, and both of them identify as queer. Go figure.
Hey. Well, they're friends with you, so.
Well, it's funny because, anyway, I don't want to go into them. But the point of the matter is, it's the drive to do witchcraft that makes the mark. If you are here, you were meant to be here.
Mm-hmm.
If you are doing the work of a witch, you have the witch's mark. There are many people who try to blow this up and try to make it especially special. The problem is that that's becoming an ego trap. That's becoming when you're just like, stroke ego, I am just so great, look at me, look, I'm the supreme.
Sorcerer supreme.
You know, like, who's the baddest witch in town? You know, American Horror Story Coven levels of whatever.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, like, every last one of us who watched that series totally felt empowered by it. But
I have to watch it.
oh my!
I don't watch TV ever or
just
shows.
that season. You don't have to watch any other season. Just watch Coven.
It was Coven, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did want to watch that. I also really want to watch the Charmed reboot, but I also want to watch Old Charmed.
Watch Old Charmed. Don't worry about it.
I don't know. I want to watch more witch shows. I guess
we're doing a podcast on this, guys. I promise. We just haven't gotten around to it yet.
Oh, pop culture paganism?
No, just like TV, witchy TV, and
oh, witchy TV, yeah, for sure. But I definitely wanted to do it. Like, I did. This is a thing. I want to have smaller segments, like breaking down, like Harry Potter, The Craft, and like right. Little small. Anyway, coming soon.
Yeah.
You got sidetracked.
No, it's okay. I'm reading my notes. I'm sorry, everybody. So, it is just about doing the work. It's just about making magic. And once you start doing that, you know you're marked. I have the belief that you will not be here if you weren't meant to be. And that counts for everybody. Mm-hmm. Every last one of us. And that means from the people, and I know this sounds crazy, and I know you're going to think I'm nuts, but I still think it applies even to those of us who, you know, like the people that we really don't agree with, even like the New Agers sometimes. Mm-hmm. You know, when they talk about their downloads and their crystals and their whatever, mm-hmm. I don't agree with it, but they also apply.
They're doing work.
And they're making it happen. It works for them.
Yeah.
Something's happening. They're mm-hmm. making that psychic healing and stuff work. It might not be how I do it. I might have whatever's with it. But they're still doing the work, which means they're still involved. Mm-hmm. Because that's another thing, too. Once the idea and the concept of the witch's mark or the witch's blood becomes only certain people, that's when it falls into the ego. That's when it becomes egotistical and ego trap. So unless it's able to mean everyone, then it has no place.
Yeah, because everyone can participate in witchcraft.
Right.
Everyone can, whether you're into it or not. You know what I'm saying? Right. Like you could be a completely atheist, secular, science is the only explanation for the universe, blah, blah, blah. You can be a person exactly like that.
Right.
But if your friend is a witch, and they're like, hey, can you just, be here and just, give me your energy and support? And if you're that kind of person, they'd be like, okay, yeah, I can give you my energy and support. You're still doing witchcraft. You're still lending your power to that.
Yeah. Yeah,
so,
I mean, if you're one of those people who can put yourself,
yeah,
I find that most people like that can't. But
right, so
if you could,
yeah, so you're still contributing to the greater witchcraft experience.
No, of course, I would argue that person doesn't have the mark. If they're just there to give us support and just to lend energy.
Well, no, it's just like we said. there are plenty of I am sure that there are plenty of witches out there, even well-known writers and authors and everything that don't have the mark. They just can write really, really well, and people listen to them. Some of the ones, you know what I mean? McMagic type people.
You know what's funny though? I don't know if I agree with that.
Really?
Exactly. I just feel as though, for instance,
I suppose writing a book about it is still doing the work.
And I mean, a lot of them do the work. It's just work that we wouldn't agree with.
True.
Or work that wouldn't work for us because it's not the way we work. Mm. And the thing is, a lot of people, for instance, give Silver Ravenwolf a lot of flack. There's a lot of, and she's not the only one, but there's a lot of authors, for instance, who give bad history.
Yeah.
The history isn't really good, and a lot of
they
authors
focus on too much on the burning times, and it's
which is
relax.
Issue in and of itself, but. The point of the matter is that Silver Ravenwolf is still doing the work. Her coven is strong. Her coven still ongoing. Coven of the Black Woods or whatever. like she does the work, and
you gotta give her props for it.
And I respect her power. She has influence, and she helped to birth a generation of magic, a generation of young witches, just like Cunningham and Buckland. I personally like Big Blue, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
I never got into Big Blue. I
just bought it just to have it.
I didn't even bother. I really wasn't interested. And it's not because I disrespect him. It just wasn't something that I wanted. It wasn't. It's not a voice that struck with me. It didn't do anything for me.
Yeah.
But the thing is
mine was like, I saw Silver Ravenwolf next to like Cunningham and Buckland, and I think it was just like probably like the aesthetic of the book drew me away because it was very teenage girl witch. It was very Sabrina-y, sort of.
I think that was on purpose, though.
No, yeah, totally, for marketing and everything, absolutely, but that did not resonate with me at the time.
Right.
So I was like, oh, Cunningham and Buckland, like, this is nature, and they're very, like, it's very clean sort of format. So, like, just that's why I went more toward them than her.
I like Cunningham. Cunningham was great. For a while, yeah. I still have a few of his books.
When you read Cunningham, it's like a familiar voice, like that cool uncle, that cool chill uncle that like comes to visit you. Mm-hmm. Like, yeah, check out these gemstones, and you're like, yeah, I like that.
Yeah, I completely feel that. So, my idea is that they're here, it's like I said, as long as they're doing the work, which most of them are, they got it. It's there, and I'm respecting them. Now, of course, I'm growing up. I'm changing. My views are expanding, and I'm allowed to do that. I'm allowed to.
We evolve. The only way to survive is to evolve.
Right. So like, did I always have such a non-egotistical opinion? No, I was once very ego whatever, and I know that I'm very opinionated.
I'm starting to get that way now. My ego is starting to kick in now.
It is.
I don't know why.
Because I think, and if I may, because you're going through a lot of transitions. But I mean that literally. I mean it literally. I think because it's confidence, and the thing is that that's going to be your journey on how to harness that newfound confidence and not let it make you egotistical. And no one can judge you. Did I judge you when you...
There's nothing wrong with feeling your ego. I mean, there's nothing wrong with having an ego. Everyone has an ego.
No. The ego is not your enemy. Mm-hmm. The ego is a protector of sorts. Mm-hmm. You just have to remember that the ego, you need to be in control.
Yes.
You need to be in control.
Yeah, and I'm pretty self-aware, and that's the thing is I'm so self-aware that I'm like, I can feel my ego evolving and expanding and maybe becoming a bit more confident in a lot of ways. Like, I feel like I can take charge and lead. I think that's what I feel like I can lead people.
Well, even with this podcast, like, I've realized, even just today, there are times where, like, I wasn't, well, I mean, thankfully I have a notebook now. This helps a lot. But there are times where, like, I necessarily would not have my thoughts together, and maybe I wouldn't agree with something you said. Mm-hmm. And I'm kind of like, oh, kind of. And I would just let it go after that, and we would just keep talking. Whereas, like, I'm realizing, because you said to me earlier when the camera was off, that, oh, you seem more confident. Mm-hmm. And that was something I actually did. That was one of the things I did acknowledge. Talking about a notebook, things like that. So these are things that, not just in therapy, but just in myself. But anyway, to get back to it, the witch blood, if you were here and you were doing the work, you were a witch, you were a sorcerer, a magician, cunning folk.
You have the witch blood.
You're meant to be here. You have a mark that makes you magical, and that is no matter where you're at in your practice, young or old, older than us, even like elders, like it just, that's the way I see it. So it's funny because although the quote I said here from Sarah and all this would contradict that, but in essence it doesn't.
It contradicts it as well as defines it. At least, like, it contradicts and also defines. No, it defines your interpretation of the witch blood.
Right.
It defines I should say our interpretation, because we share the same view. So it defines our interpretation of the witch blood, but it contradicts the traditional, egotistical idea of the witch blood.
Right. Which, you know, is for me, is amazing. If I can break down these dogmatic pieces of witchcraft, let's be real, there is dogma in witchcraft. Yeah. I know a lot of people, you know, the young ones would hate to agree with that.
Yeah.
I think. I don't know if that's true. Correct me if I'm wrong, please. Yeah. Now I have a question. To kind of play a little bit with this. There was an author that you last night were telling me about.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel? Now, I know how I feel about this, but how do you feel about assholes who do the work, but like they're assholes but they do the work? Like they say horrible, mean, degrading things. How do you feel about that? Does that diminish their mark, or are assholes also allowed to be witches?
Okay. Assholes are allowed to be witches because
agree.
I feel like the term asshole is very, like, open to interpretation, because I'm sure, like, to that person, I'm an asshole. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but I think we also know what that means now. Like,
yeah, we do. We know what that means.
There's good assholes and there's bad assholes.
How many assholes are on this ship? But anyway. Spaceballs reference. So, alright. Are assholes allowed to be witches? Yes. And they are. And sometimes they're the most prominent voices. Sometimes.
They are louder sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, sometimes, they shout louder than the rest of us, because the rest of us are like, I just want to do my witchcraft and focus on what's in my wheelhouse, what's in my local sphere, my local community. And we don't want to put our energy out into the void like that.
Mm-hmm.
Just to, for people, for validation? Is that what it is? I find that people who are the assholes, they tend to be more of the egomaniacs. They're usually the ones that when they begin their book, they go, I am from a long line of witches. My grandmother practiced,
Striggeria.
Striggeria. That's like a very American pronunciation of that, I'm sure.
It is.
It's like you should like roll the R's and stuff. Whatever. Italian folk witchcraft.
Which BT dubs the term strega is relatively new in the scope. They didn't call it striggeria.
Really?
In Italy, yeah.
So it's like a modernized naming of it. So yeah, you find that a lot, that they're the ones that are like, okay, so yeah, I'm like, I understand. You have to establish yourself in your writing and say, I am this, blah, 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 blah. The writers that I tend to prefer, the witches that I tend to prefer are, I've been a witch, I've been practicing as a witch for 10 years, for 15 years, for 5 years. Like, I just prefer to just have just, like, a number of, like, oh, I've been on this path for X amount of time. I don't necessarily think that 30 years versus 5 minutes has any... Like, it has difference in terms of your wealth of knowledge and your mastery of concepts.
Yeah.
But it does not make you any more or less of a witch.
Right.
So yeah, assholes are allowed to be... Anyone's allowed to be a witch.
I mean to say, and the only reason I asked about this, I was just curious. Just because a lot of people put that kind of, that morality.
I mean, can I just, like, say what ticked me off about the book, about the writer?
This is our podcast. Do what you want.
So, I think I was on the Witches Betwixt Instagram, or my own personal Instagram, just following the hashtag witchcraft. And so, like, posts pop up, and I saw, it was, like, this really cool-looking book. The name of the author was Lisa Lister, and it was, like, this black book, and it had gold writing. It was, like, witch, and it was something, like, untamed, unbroken, or something like that. It had, like, 3 words like that.
It's a very popular book right now amongst the young witches.
Yeah, and it's cheap, so I can see why. So I was like, that looks cool. Just aesthetically, I was like, that looks like a neat book. I wonder what's inside that book.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know who Lisa Lister was. I honestly didn't know. She was not on my radar. So I searched the book, and I found like a 70-page Google preview, which is like the book doesn't look that long, so like a 70-page preview is a pretty good chunk of the book. And I was very I hate using the word upset, but I was upset.
Okay,
I was upset in the first couple pages because she essentially says only women are witches. Basically, like, she used the term like pussy to the earth, and I was like, okay. It was very, I don't even want to say it was Dianic. It was just, because what she also said was, I don't care that I'm pissing off men because I'm not calling them witches. I don't care that I'm pissing off the transgender community because I'm not addressing them. And it was very polarizing and upsetting because young witches are reading this.
And trans women are women.
Yeah, I mean, let's just, trans men are men, trans women are women,
yeah.
And then there are a lot of people in between.
Yeah.
So, okay, done. Yeah, I was upset. I was definitely really upset. Because I can get behind, like, pussy power. Like, I get it. You know what I mean? Like, I have that body part. I don't identify as a woman, but I have that body part, and that body part is powerful, and it's very magical. And I'm okay with it. I have my moments where I'm not, but I'm okay with it. So, to see someone write about, like, well, it's like only women have vaginas, and only cis women are real women, and women. It's like, but no, but I'm a man, and I have that same part as you, and that part is just as magical, and you are not addressing that, and that is bothering the fuck out of me. It's not okay.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of, and honestly, let's be real, a lot of these kids, they're usually queer, they're usually somewhere on that queer spectrum, because I couldn't imagine picking up that book as a young queer person now, and reading that and being like, oh, well, I guess I have to just keep being a woman in order to be a witch.
So, I mean, the thing is that I don't know if I would have the reading comprehension at certain points in my life, but, no, I mean, I don't know if I would have caught on to some of those nuances. I mean, I caught on to them now. It was very blatant.
Like, she wrote, I don't care that I'm pissing off the transgender community.
She very much did.
And yes. I was like, wow, that's, okay. Like, way to polarize yourself.
Well, right,
why
I think
the division in the community? That's my problem. It's the division. Why do you have to come forward and say, I'm drawing a line in the sand. Fight me. Why?
Yeah. Yeah.
But she's one of those people who's like, I'm a hereditary witch, and she used the term gypsy. She used the term gypsy, which I know there's debate about, and like that's
Did
why.
she?
Yes, her family is from a line of gypsies, is what she said. She didn't use Romani people or anything.
Did she quote the word like?
No. Like capital G.
Wow.
Yeah. Which I don't know if that's a term that some people have sort of reclaimed. I don't know. I'm not. That's not my lineage, and it's not my place to argue it.
It's not my heritage.
Exactly. So I'm not going to get into that. But yeah, I was very perturbed, especially because we were dealing with like a political. We were dealing with an asshole in one of our pagan public group things. Circles. Yeah. So. We were talking about that, and then that popped up, and I was like, and by the way, this...
I mean, these are the things there's a reason why I brought this up, and I do want to kind of explain. A lot of people, I've just had this, be an example throughout my life where people question if, quote-unquote, bad people can actually work magic effectively. And the answer is yes, they can. They very much can. I was bringing up the morality of the witch blood. A lot of people talk about that.
The witch blood does not discriminate.
Right.
It does not discriminate based on what you want to do with your witchcraft.
Right.
Either
If you're
you
called,
have it
you're
or
called.
you don't. Yes.
If you're called, you're called.
And whatever that calling is what it is. Like the witch blood does not dictate your calling. It just dictates whether you do it or not.
Right. Right. If you do not, you don't have the calling. You don't have the blood. If you do it, you do.
Exactly.
And that's So it's a very liberal, very open, welcoming idea of that. So that's what I did it. A lot of people, like I said, question the morality of it. Yeah.
I think I kind of want to get into a little bit more like on our concept of the witch blood and like our coven name, and maybe explain like kind of how much the concept of the witch blood means to us.
Yeah.
It's literally a part of our coven name.
Yeah.
You want to talk about that, or?
Sure. So
what is our coven name?
I wasn't sure if you wanted me to say it or not.
Yeah,
so the name of our coven is Blood of the Iron Thread.
Which, if you look at other witch covens and stuff, they tend to not have that style of name. It's usually like Oak Tree Coven or Blackwood Coven,
right,
or something like that. Like the word coven is in.
Jay is just maybe a little bit anal retentive for some reason about those kind of names. I'm not, but I don't care either way. No, I really enjoy the name of our coven. The name of our coven came about studying the fairy tradition. Neither one of us are initiates. I know we said it before, but I do want to say it again.
Just very highly interested and influenced by it.
Right, and we respect the tradition. And they have...
Do want to get initiated. I mean, I want to.
I would totally get initiated. Yeah. They have a concept of the Iron Pentacle and the Pearl Pentacle.
Which I found the book The Iron Pentacle and was not aware that it was a part of the fairy tradition. I didn't know. I found the book and I was like, that's neat, and I picked it up. And it blew my mind. Because it basically deals with the concept of iron. The Iron Pentacle. Iron is the basis of all things. There's iron in stardust. And we are all stardust. You know what I mean? Like, we're all just part of this giant cosmos. So, there was two concepts that really struck with us, is that everything is iron, but we are the ones with the witch blood. And there is iron in our blood.
Right. So, and then of course, Blood of the Iron Thread, and the thread part is because of our deep reverence and respect for the witches and the workers who've come before us. And it's our belief that that magic, that lineage becomes unbroken through a divine connection.
It's like an eternal spider web of
much like the weird.
Yeah. So essentially, Blood of the Iron Thread, the witch blood of the Iron Thread. So it's a very lofty sort of name, but it encompasses all of our main beliefs.
Yeah, I mean, I try not to put, like, I've done that too. I think about how lofty it might sound. I try not to put
We didn't pick
too much
blood,
on it.
iron. We didn't put blood and iron in there to sound cool, basically.
Well, oh my God, we sat down and we had talked about this because we were so afraid of trying to do that.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I said, let it be wholesome, let it come from, I want it to mean something. And,
so we had, like, a really deep discussion about, like, the main roots of, like, what we believe in, and I was like, this Iron Pentacle thing really just, it resonated with both of us, and the concept of the witch blood, which makes me think about, so, like, we reference the witch blood in our coven name. Does that... do you think that could be misconstrued as us being like, we are descendants from a long line of witch, you know what I mean?
But I'm not really. I mean, like, I'm really not.
Do you think it could be perceived that way?
I think it easily could, which is a big reason why I think making our opinions known about it is important. Mm-hmm. Just because I'm not descended from a long line of witches. I have other practitioners of magic in my family. If my father dabbled, I wouldn't say he was devoted. He definitely doesn't now. He's terrified of it, actually. And I had two great grandmother and her mother who lived in Appalachia, lived in the Appalachian Mountains, who were we now call it like granny witchcraft or whatever, or Hills Folk Hoodoo, you know.
There's going to be a panel about that at Big Pride.
By the author of that said book. It's a very similar book. I've read some of it. I have it on my Kindle.
Byron.
She's amazing.
Byron
she is fierce,
Byron.
and she's
cool.
She's awesome. I never met her yet. I plan to meet her. And anyway. Yeah.
It's so funny you mentioned it. I was like, that sounds familiar.
It's because it is. Yeah, who did practice. I did have two. They both practiced. Now, I don't, but the thing is that just because, I mean, don't get me wrong, I honor that I have magic, folk magic elsewhere in my family. I respect that, but I don't believe...
You don't believe that it makes you a more powerful witch than me?
No. I'm not, at no point in time is anyone better than anyone else.
Because of their lineage or heritage. Like, their actual...
Or for any reason.
Yeah, well, yeah. But, like, in particular, you know, just because your great-grandmother could cook up spells like no other does not mean that those talents and drive were passed on to you. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Another thing, because sometimes I also think of the witch blood in a little bit of a different way, is like, you know, when, like you were saying, your friends that were born on Halloween and they've had experiences and things like that. So, like, I know witches tend to not be preachy, you know what I mean? But you ever just, like, encounter someone that they got it?
Oh, yeah.
They got it.
The
and
unintentional wit?
Yeah, and you're like, you should totally harness that, like...
Yeah, we don't proselytize, but there are times where, like, I have a good friend of mine, Richie, he tells me all the time, he'll be like, Scott, you're doing the thing. Because I'll meet people and I feel it. It comes off of them in waves. I was like, you would be a really great witch.
Exactly. You almost feel like you're like recruiting for Hogwarts or something like that.
I don't mean to like proselytize or be that person, but I know what you're saying.
But like you want to empower them, because a lot of times what I encounter is like, oh, it was just this. Oh, like they play it off like it wasn't a big deal, and you're like, listen here, that was huge. Like, that connection that you just had with that person, or that connection you just had with that animal, or whatever it was, or the fact that you knew what I was going to say before I even said it, and we don't even know each other that well, or whatever the case is, that, like, means something. Or the fact that it's like, I'm just gonna, like, call them out right now. I think my partner, has, like, some... I call it their Amazon witch list. I basically have this, like, running list of things. I'm like, yeah, you're a witch. And I say it jokingly, but I'm really saying it in, like, in an empowering way. Because, like, one of the first times I had gone to their place, they gave me their shed from their boa constrictor. And they're like, well, what are you going to do with that? And I was like, I don't really know what I'm going to do with it. I just like to have it on hand. But I could use it for, you know, like cleansing,
rituals,
rebirth binding. Yes.
You can use your snake shed for a lot.
Idea.
Yep.
Later. Got you.
Yep.
Okay.
We're not planning anything.
We're not doing anything.
There is no cauldron boiling in my yard.
The stove is right there. So and what they had responded was, oh, I figured it would be something like that. How did you know? You know what I'm saying? Like, and I know, like, they probably have had, like, I know they've had other, like, people that have practiced witchcraft in their life, but it's just, like, it's sort of, like, an innate understanding of the workings of witchcraft.
Right.
Without realizing it.
I mean, and, you know, it's funny, I mean, because I have a couple things I want to say, but to go off of that, one of my friends who was born on Halloween, he did something that that impressed me.
Wow.
Like, I'm talking, like, I was almost a little jelly. Like,
I want to do that.
He saw verbatim. Now, he had a dream that me and his ex were having a text conversation. Mm-hmm. He saw verbatim most of the text message in text form in the dream.
Shit. Wow.
He said, I was looking through your eyes at a phone, and I could hear
like, possessed you for a hot second.
But he was asleep, so he was seeing something that had already happened. Oh. And he said, I could hear the, you know, the phone. He could hear it, he could feel it, and he was saying it was just really surreal. And he almost verbatim told me what I had said to his ex.
I'd be jelly. I am jelly.
I mean, that was amazing.
Yeah.
That was absolutely outstanding. I mean, I've done some pretty cool shit too, but I gotta give him his kudos. I gotta give him his kudos. That was amazing.
That's what I'm saying. Like, so that's what I feel like.
By the way, I'm sorry. You don't need to be doing awesome cools. Like, that's not.
No.
That's not.
I don't do awesome cool shit.
You're pretty empathic though, but and you're pretty darn sensitive. But that's besides the point. The point of the matter is, I want it duly noted that you should work on your psychic mind, but it is not the mark of an awesome witch to do amazing psychic things. Basically, you don't need to be psychic to be a witch.
Yeah, that. Another thing, too, is if you are one of those people who have a natural affinity toward, like, abilities like that, and you have and you do not have the witch blood, and you are not interested in pursuing witchcraft, it still might be helpful for you just to understand some basic principles
and psychic techniques
to keep yourself from
safe.
Yeah, to keep yourself safe. Because just like there are witches, there are bad witches. I hate to say this, but there are bad witches.
There are morally questionable witches.
They'll take advantage of that.
Yeah.
And they'll use your abilities without you realizing it.
Not only that, I mean, and that I almost feel is rarer than when you are sensitive.
And you feel a lot of things. Because like a lot of things can be mistaken for like depression.
Like this one here. Mm-hmm. We, even witches, even young witches who, you know, the moment you do your self-initiation, I know a lot of young witches do that a self-initiation ritual.
I did it.
The moment they do that, a bell rings out on the other side, in the other world, and everything there now knows what you are doing. Mm-hmm. Things come through. That's why, you know, a lot of people, they try to say that psychics and witches and things like that, they try to say that we're just hysterical. You know, we talk about dark spirits and things like that, and we're always cleansing and whatever.
Jumbo.
But the problem with that is that we draw it. It comes to us because we're open to it. Good, bad, you know, parasitic spiritual forces, etc. They're drawn to our presence because that is what happens. The witch's aura, the emanating spiritual force of the person, in particular of a spiritual worker, whether you are, no matter what traditions or whatever, it changes it expands your aura, it expands your essence, it changes it.
Yeah.
You become a huge blaring beacon for the other side.
Yeah.
And those forces are not always of the most up and up. You know.
Yeah.
Those are things that come along with bearing the mark.
The mark in that sense, not the mark in because I feel like we're like saying like two different definitions a little bit. So like we personally believe the witch blood is the drive to do the work, but there are people who are marked in a way in which they have these, so in a way, I guess you could call it a witch's mark. Like they're marked, but they don't have the drive. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I think the thing here is that maybe psychic doesn't make you a witch.
Oh yeah, I mean, someone can be psychic and not practice witchcraft, so yeah.
Right.
It just, the two tend to go hand in hand. Witchcraft tends to enhance.
It helps, yeah, it does, it tends to help enhance and help and foster psychic talents, even in people who maybe thought they didn't have any.
Yeah.
So the problem is that we have to understand that being psychic is not marked.
Right, it's just an ability.
Right.
Yeah, okay. It's a little
and that's something that I think a lot of people have a problem with.
But I definitely feel it when people have sort of not so much psychic, but definitely like just affinity toward witchcraft, affinity toward understanding what you're doing.
I would also. This is something incredibly important as well, and this is something that I think all of our viewers, myself included, Jay included, have to remember. Speaking in generalizations, when you were talking about the limitless, when you were talking about the numinous, you were talking about something that cannot be quantified. We cannot put it in a test tube. We cannot test it. We cannot measure it. We're speaking generally.
Yeah.
Because quantifying what is marked, what isn't marked, what is cat, no. Move your butt.
Scoot.
What is this? What is that? What is witchcraft? What is not?
It can get really existential really fast.
It really can.
Yeah.
The problem
if you're
is
not careful.
The problem is that sure, it could be argued that witches historically have always had the second sight. You were correct. But the thing is that if you look at Irish folklore, there were many people who were spirit seers and prophets and prophetesses who, secular prophets and prophetesses, who could see the future, the past, the present, etc., who were still Catholic or, whatever. They weren't necessarily pagan. So the marked is, the idea of the mark is interpretable. It's malleable, like everything that is spiritual. It's not an exact science.
No, and witchcraft will never be an exact science in general.
No.
Like that.
I think it has its place.
Yeah.
Among science,
yes.
And should be respected as science is respected. But I don't think that it's a soft science.
Yeah, definitely a soft science, or maybe like a pseudoscience. But yeah, like a soft science because science is very it's very like you can measure it, you can quantify it, you can manipulate. Like it's just you can't always do that.
Right.
Because there is an element of randomness. There's an element of there's an element of question. Like you could have the most constructed spell, but there's still an element there of what could happen.
Right. And as I've said before as well, oh man, lost my train of thought brain.
Oh.
I'm getting old.
No. Essentially, I think we should wrap it up though. Basically, what we're saying is that the witch blood is a real thing. It is a real concept. Historically, it has had a lot of different meanings. Usually in the realm of like a physical manifestation or some sort of power or a mark on the body. Our modern day and also like just our personal interpretation of it is like that drive to do witchcraft. So as long as you have that drive to do witchcraft, you are of the witch blood. You have the witch blood.
Right.
And another thing to remember is don't roll your eyes at someone's heritage but like respect it because it influences their craft for sure.
And it also may be important. It may
be a factor, but it's like we said, witchcraft is like a soft science, so it's not something we know.
Right.
It's something that we work with, and we try to understand.
A deed without a name. It's something we do.
Yeah.
It's something we do.
Exactly. So, yes. That kind of wraps up everything.
Yeah. I really would love to talk to you guys more about this. I love this topic. There's a lot more that can be said. Jay and I are always, always, always willing to further talk about these topics in the comments.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, my cat almost fell if you saw me on Twitch. We're always really ready to talk with you guys and dig and pull out more things with these topics.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So please talk to us. We want to hear from you. We want to hear your thoughts. Just remember, everyone be kind to each other. Be kind to us. Obviously, we will be kind to you. Yeah, and with that, I think we could sign off.
Mm-hmm.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Hello, everyone. Scott here. I've been reading tarot for over 10 years. I am an intuitive reader, and through my readings, I try to give guidance to aid my clients in navigating their lives. To schedule a reading with me, you can find me on Facebook at WytchWyse, Seer, and Witch. You can also find me over on Instagram and Tumblr with the handle WytchWyse, spelled WYTCHWYSE. You can find links to all of my social media in the show notes. I hope to hear from you.